Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are and whenever you're listening to this. Welcome to the second Auxiliary Markings Club show and tell. These are always a lot of fun, and we hope that you'll enjoy them. I'm Greg Redner. I'm on the board of the Auxiliary Markings Club, and I want to do a commercial before we get started, which is to say, he says, there we go. If you're not already a member of the Auxiliary Markings Club, we'd like to encourage you to think about doing that. You can find the information at postalmarkings.org. Print membership is $19 and digital membership is $15. In addition to all of the wonderful things you can find on the website, this membership also includes access to our wonderful Auxiliary Markings journal/newsletter, which contains a lot of really interesting material. And I like to think that it's the best $15 that I can spend for my in terms of value. So we hope you'll give some thought to that. I also wanted to say, if any of you are planning to come to the Royal of the Royal Canadian Royal Philatelic Society of Canada in September, there will be a Auxiliary Markings Club show and tell meeting at the Royal. So if you're in Canada or planning to come, and I don't know why anybody wouldn't come, it's a wonderful event, and Fredericton is a beautiful city. We'll have a meeting there, and we hope that you can join us. So we're going to begin tonight. Jim has very kindly sent us a number of nice covers, and so we're going to begin, Jim, with you talking about yours. So on with the show now. That's not one of your covers, Jim.
Yeah, no.
Wait a minute. Jim isn't going first. Greg is going first, and you would think
Okay.
Greg would actually know this. So you're going to be next, Jim. Okay. So I haven't done a tremendous amount of research on any of these covers. They're really recent acquisitions. But each one of them has something that I think is interesting. This is a Canadian cover that I find fascinating, partly because it's an airmail cover to a ship, to the Empress of Britain that was part of the Canadian Pacific fleet that brought people from the UK to Canada, and then of course they would take the train across the country from there to go to Vancouver or whatever and continue on. There were also ships that went out of the Western ports to go to Asia and places like that. And the Empress of Britain is one of the more famous ships in this. But what I found fascinating about this is that this was used a special delivery express stamp used in conjunction with airmail, which I'm not very familiar with in Canada, and I don't know that I've ever seen this before. So I find it a fascinating, really fascinating cover. These are all special delivery covers that I'm going to show you tonight, something I've gotten interested in the last couple of months. Next to the Dead Letter Office, the Queen Victoria Dead Letter Office stamp, the black Queen Victoria Dead Letter Office stamp of Canada. This red special delivery stamp is one of the rarer stamps in the back of the book collection. It's obviously nowhere in the same league as the Black Prince Albert number 11, but still, in terms of back of the book things, it's quite a special stamp. So I found this very interesting. This is just another example of a special delivery stamp used across the border. And this isn't something that I am terribly familiar with, and you may be able to speak to this. I included this one because I just actually wanted to find out. Special delivery stamps that come from outside the country. My sense was that they don't apply when they cross the border. That special delivery is an internal um, um, purchasable um, add-on. Does anybody know if special delivery between Canada and the U.S. applies?
Now,
Okay, well,
I,
I'll
I
have.
don't, I
The,
don't know, but I have a vague recollection. I remember reading something that there was some bilateral agreement.
yeah,
And it's interesting to notice the hand stamp that says fee claimed at
Right.
Springfield, Mass. So Springfield in the United States, one of many, um, thinks that they've got money coming.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you must have been able to do this. And I'm going to
yeah.
research this and look.
Actually, Canada and the U.S. are Canada was the first country that the U.S. had a special delivery reciprocal relationship with,
Ah,
and and uh, I think it started in the 20s and the 1920s, and as long as the fee was totally prepaid at the country of origin, the special delivery will be honored in the next country.
wow. Okay, that's really interesting. I'm going to dig into that a bit further.
Yeah.
Beyond that, there's nothing particularly special about this. I just wanted to ask the question, and I haven't had a chance to look into it.
Yeah.
Good. Hang on. Um, so this is again another Canadian cover. Um, I just find I these received markings are new to me. I don't collect a lot of, recent within the last 50 or 60 years of postal history, and I don't collect a lot in terms of the US. But they were striking to me and also unbelievably messy. Um, and I just wondered if anybody had seen these before, if they're common or if they're something slightly out of the norm.
Yeah, I think they're relatively common,
Okay.
um, at least in the U.S., and they're usually
Yeah.
applied by receiving company. They're not national postal markings or anything.
Right. Okay. That explains it then. That explains it. And if you go back two presentations before this, you can find out all about these special delivery labels because we had a wonderful presentation on them two Zoom meetings previously, I think in January. Um, okay. This one I actually, again, following on from the cover we saw earlier in reference to the to airmail and then special delivery to get to a ship. Um, this is special delivery by railroad, spelled incorrectly. Sorry about that. Combined with international U.S. air, which is not. When you think about it, depending on where it's coming from, it's not all that unusual. But I have not seen this combination from Mexico coming into the U.S., and so I just thought it was kind of fascinating and very interesting. Okay, and of course another Mexican cover from the period of World War II. We don't often think that there were censors at work on the Mexican border, but of course there were. And this is an example of a censored piece of mail coming out of Mexico into Austin, Texas. Again, fee claimed by the Office of First Address. That's why I was kind of that's why I assumed that it was possible to do this from Canada because of this cover. So that's really helpful. But I think it's a really interesting cover. And then out of Ecuador, also World War II. Again, the sensor vignette, special delivery. This one is return to sender. It was going to Delaware. And I think I have the rear, yeah, the back side of this, which again, I haven't done a lot of work with, but I find it very interesting to follow the path of it. And again, it was returned to sender because there was no response on the part of the person it was delivered to. It doesn't tell us that at the bottom, but it says offered at address, cause of non-delivery. May have been in that stamp, the smudge stamp, if we invert it, that's above the offer, offered at address.
Greg, it's got a registry division marking from New York on the back, and if you flip it back to the other front, is that a handwritten registration number? Is that how they basically tracked it through what they thought was special delivery? I don't know.
I don't.
I think what we're looking at is, it says no response in handwriting.
Yeah.
So they attempted to deliver it. It was undeliverable. I remember reading an article recently that the registry numbers, you have a registry number from point A to point B. Now, if it's undeliverable, I think they put a new registry number, which I think is that handwritten number,
Right.
20010, because they're now starting a new trail. The trail from Ecuador to the Delaware ended with no response. Now they've got a new trail going from Delaware back to Ecuador, which therefore is a new registry number.
Right. And if you look at the back cover, let's see, 220. I just wondered if there was a date. Yeah, that looks like March 1st of 1945, and the registry number on the New York one is from February the 28th.
Right, and there's a February 18th, Miami, Florida,
Miami.
top left.
Yeah.
And then top right, March 1st.
Right. Yeah, it's a fascinating cover.
And
it might be.
There's an additional sensor number there also.
Yeah.
In writing.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering if the 20010 is again a sensor.
Yeah,
mark,
I'm pretty sure it is.
you know.
And then the new registry number is the R4408 bond
Yeah.
center.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, very interesting cover. Might be an article in that one. This is a 1938 cover from Cuba. What I was not aware of, well, and the thing I love, actually, what I love about this cover most of all, is there must have been some issue. There must have been some issue with this not having, or seemingly not having been placed in the proper receptacle, because they stamped it not in special delivery mail. And I don't know how that works in the US, but in Canada, that usually, a marking like that usually indicates that it was placed in the wrong box, or not taken, put in the box, but not taken to the counter. And I love the fact that it's crossed out and then is subsequently special delivery mail. It replaces the not in special delivery mail. And I haven't seen that very commonly. Other than that, not particularly remarkable. This is my my coup of the month. This is a 1835 cover from the UK to Ancaster, which is a town near Toronto, kind of on the other side of Lake Ontario, and was part of Upper Canada at the time. But this is one of the earliest forwarded markings that I've ever seen on an external piece of mail to Upper Canada. And I was very, very excited to get my hands on that. It's a beauty. So that's it. That's it for me. Thanks, everybody.
And obviously before stamps.
Yeah, before pre-stamp. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Jim, you're up.
All right. Well, this is a picture postcard that originated in Sterling, Colorado, and it was going to Oskaloosa, Iowa. And it looks like, you can see the general delivery, Oskaloosa, Iowa, and it's got the city marks and the rural markings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now it looks like they've crossed out most of these. The boldest one was on 3, so I don't know whether that would be a city route 3. And then it looked, Oskaloosa was crossed out, and then I'm thinking that says Hamilton, but I'm not sure. And there is a Hamilton, Iowa, but it's not anywhere near Oskaloosa, so they must have moved sometime between this December date. I can't make out that December date for sure, but the Oskaloosa date is January 12th. But I just kind of like it because you had the city and the rural route markings.
I'm not familiar with that marking system. Is that common?
I've got several others where they have rural markings and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm guessing there was at least 5 rural routes in and around the Oskaloosa area, and then there were at least 8 city routes, and they apparently tried to hunt her up, in Oskaloosa, going through the city and through the rural routes. Couldn't reach her, and somehow, but it doesn't show like it. There's no dead letter markings or anything, but apparently they did a search and found that she had apparently moved to Hamilton. And like I said, I'm not sure that's Hamilton, Iowa or not, but
I'm fascinated by the fact that some of the numbers are crossed out.
Yeah. And I'm thinking they said, maybe they took to each carrier, said, do you know this person? And they said no. So they went to number 2 and number 3. Check it a lot. 7 wasn't crossed out here, and 1, 2, 3 wasn't crossed out in the rural. So I'm not sure. But that I just kind of like it because of both the city and the rural checking out.
Well, I'm also puzzled by the general delivery marking. Obviously, this was addressed with no street address or post office.
Yeah.
So does that suggest that they assumed it was general delivery? I mean, normally you write general delivery. You don't just write city.
And that is, this is the early December date, and this was Oskaloosa, December 9th, 1909, but they didn't move it out until January 12th of 1910. So I'm wondering if it took that long to go through all these places, and that was the other thing that's kind of fascinating about it.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Sorry, Jim, just a second. Here we go.
And this was kind of interesting. Well, as you probably have noticed, I'm a lot of my covers are either outgoing from Iowa or incoming to Iowa, and that's because I got roped into being the president of the Iowa Postal History Society a number of years ago, and it's like I'm president for life. But I still have all my faculties, so I'm in good shape there. But it is not known by letter carriers in Melbourne. I like that marking, and unclaimed at Melbourne. And then the return to writer, and I said dead letter office, Washington D.C., and they were sending it back with to collect. They were going to collect 8 cents from when they returned it. So that was kind of an interesting little marking too. So I've got a number of return to writer type things, but this is the only one I have with to collect 8 cents. So I'm guessing it's maybe not that common of a marking. I don't know if any of you know how common or uncommon that is, but that's another reason why I like this cover. So Next slide. And this is kind of interesting. Apparently this is a stamp dealer and please special delivery to Canada. And but then I'm assuming, Greg, you'll probably know, it says, please inform your correspondents that special delivery fee on letters to Canada is 20 cents. So, so apparently they paid all the postage but 8 cents of it. So they had to collect 8 cents there in Canada. But
Yeah, that's correct. And it's also a very Canadian hand stamp. Very
Okay.
polite, not terribly threatening.
okay. Yeah, and what's kind of fascinating about this too is that you know this is a stamp dealer. You'd think he would know the rates to every place he's sending stuff out to, but maybe it's his first day on the job or something. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Next one. This is kind of interesting. It's inspected at post it was a prison mail office, and it said it was the men's reformatory, received June, and I couldn't make out the date for sure, but inspected and passed at the prison mail office. And I don't know, you know, it's not really a federal post office, but it's a prison post office, and I just kind of like that. And a long time ago, I wrote to the Anamosa Men's Reformatory to see if, or emailed to see if I could find out who Mr. Ivan E. Rhodes was, what kind of sentence he served. But like reading through the letter, he was fair. It looks like it was fairly minor sentence, and he'd be getting released sometime before too long. But that's the only thing I've had for, you know, prison type marking. So, but I just thought it was kind of interesting. Next one. And this one really bothers me. You wouldn't know this, but it says no such often as a state name, return for better directions, Brooklyn. There is a town, Brooklyn, like New York, with a YN, and why they couldn't figure that out, I have no idea. I mean, it's like maybe it's a post, like another one of these things where it might be in the post office or postmaster or postal employee that didn't know anything about the state, but it was just kind of, and it was placed over a 2-cent stamp, so it looked like it was sent with a 2-cent postage, and then returned and marked again with just 1 cent of postage. So, but that I just kind of liked it for that, just because, you know, like I said, none of you are from Iowa, so you wouldn't know, you know, how stupid this marking seems to me, but I liked it for that. Next one. And not there at 140. And this is a hotel market, unclaimed at the Stevens Hotel. And it was returned to the writer, Chicago Post Office. And it's DB, is that dead branch or dead? Do you even know what that DB stands for? I wasn't sure. So, but I think I got the backside of this. Next one, Greg. Yeah, and another one is Stevens, October 15th, and it's hard to read, but you know, the Stevens Hotel was in Chicago, and again, this was I should have dug the cover out before we went on air, but that's the back of it. So next one, Greg. And I like this one, just registered Iowa Falls, it's registered number, but I haven't, this is the only return to writer I've seen with the ribbon. I don't know, has anybody else seen any marks? Okay, I didn't know how common or uncommon those are, but this is the only one I've got, and it was that was an Iowa Falls marking. So I like it kind of like for that reason.
I've never seen a ribbon one before, and on the previous cover, I don't think I remember seeing one with such lengthy text on the palm of the hand.
Yeah.
And I have seen a few with a date on the cuff, I think, but
Yeah, I've got several of those.
that's quite an elaborate one.
Thank you.
And even the
Yeah.
shading on the underside of the hand, I mean, they went to some
Yeah.
considerable effort.
That's a left-hander.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just looking in the Leonard, is it Pishkowitz? Chicago Postal History book.
Okay.
And it appears that DB, hang on, sorry, or
Okay, no problem.
DS stands for Directory Service.
Oh, directory DS. Okay,
Yeah.
I was as a B directory service.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that makes sense then. Thanks, Greg.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, like this is, like I said, this is the only, like I said, I guess this is kind of a surprise to some of you guys too. Return to writer, and I don't know whether this would have been something they made in Iowa Falls or if it's something they could have ordered. But I just kind of like the little ribbon thing.
That's a beautiful mark.
Yeah.
Thank-
Yeah, the return to writer versus return to sender. Those back and forth is fairly common, but with the ribbon, I've never seen it.
No.
Maybe I'll have to send that in for them to put in the next auxiliary marketing newsletter.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay, next one, Greg. And this is kind of interesting. I'm going to need your help when we get to the back. This says Camp Carson CONV's, which I'm guessing is convalescent hospital, and I'm not one of these people that has a book on APO addresses, so I'm not sure. But there was no record of Private Allen in APO 128. And that was on 13 September 1944. And if you go to the next slide, I can NYPE and Army Post Office, but I'm not sure what any of this is in the middle, but it was searched, like I think it says a directory searched, and there's a number down here. This is in pencil and a date. And this was in August 1st of 1945. So something happened between the date on the front and it took a while to get this marking put on. So I don't know whether Private Allen or that private ever received this letter or not. So, but again, I just, I wasn't sure. So I'm guessing that says New York, but I'm not sure what P and E are.
New York, basically the post office in Europe. So that probably came from the European.
Oh, okay.
theater. It
Okay,
does say
thanks.
Army Post Office at the very bottom there, the bottom of that ring.
Yeah. Okay.
I wonder if this is just a letter that went to the serviceman and then it got redirected to a hospital because he wound up in a hospital. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, great. Next one. Okay, I get that. That was it. Yeah. Good.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim. That was fascinating. Good stuff. So who would like to go next? Tom, you want to go next? Okay.
Okay, and I can share my screen. And just let me know if you see the screen or not here.
Yeah.
Okay,
You got it. You're on.
I've got to go to my screen here now. Let's see. Let's do that and do this. Okay, so here are a couple covers that were kind of interesting. Greg had asked me probably a couple months ago if I wanted to try to put together a presentation on auxiliary markings. I said, I don't really have too much really to show. About a month ago, I found a box. I've been at my current residence here for about 20 years. I found a box of several hundred auxiliary markings in a box completely marked the wrong way. I had completely forgotten about it. And, you know, over this time period, finally cleaning things up, and I found this giant box. And I started pawing through it and said, gee, there's some nice stuff in here. So I'm going to give you a sample of what some of these things look like. Some of these are private markings. Some of these are actual postal markings. So go on to this one here. Let me move this out of the way here. There we go. Okay, bankrupt, return to sender. I said, geez, that's not a postal marking, but that's have to do something with the business that this was sent to. So I did some digging in this regard. What I found out, you'll see some notes here on the bottom. In fact, let me minimize you folks here. This was mailed from Dallas, Texas, sent to a company called Wonderwood in Torrance, California. I can't make out the very last word, which is here. It's Wonderwood something or other, a P.O. Box, Torrance, California. There's a back stamp on the back, April 15th, a couple days later. Then it was readdressed the following day, April 16th, to this other company in Los Angeles, California, and returned to writer on claim that you see in the lower left-hand corner there too. So I started doing some digging, and isn't the internet a great source for information? Without the internet, I don't think I'd ever be able to find out any information about this, but I was. Let me move on to the next page here. And here is some information. I looked up Wonderwood on the internet and come to find out Wonderwood, for this article that was in some trade publication of the time in April '65. It's a company that actually makes what we call shingles. They call them shakes, cedar shakes out west, apparently. Things that you just put on the outside of the house. And Wonderwood was this company, a group of companies that got together, created this this structure, this organization selling this Wonderwood product. So then, okay, so now I at least know what Wonderwood is, but what's the story with the rest of the cover, which is behind it here too? So then I looked up the name and the address of the second place where this was mailed to, and it did look like a business. In fact, it looked like a law practice, and lo and behold, this law practice, even from back then, is still around now. This is a gentleman who founded the law practice. His name is Carlisle Michelman, Esquire. He specialized in bankruptcies. In fact, he was a person who was out here in the East, as you can kind of read through that. Went to Michigan Law School. He was into bankruptcy laws and things like that, then moved out to California. And when he moved out to California, was appointed to the California, basically a bankruptcy court or board there as a receiver and trustee in 1961, as you can read there, for organizations that go bankrupt. So from all of that information, I was able to piece together that bankrupt return to sender must have been a mark that this particular law firm used to at least explain why this particular letter was being sent back to the writer. The previous article, I didn't read that all the way through for you there, but basically said that the company did go bankrupt, and I don't know why that person was writing to them from Texas, but they did, and that's kind of the story of that particular marking and that cover. Kind of interesting and very fortuitous that all that information was available just from the internet. Okay, nothing too unusual. I've seen markings like this before, not markings, but slips. This just happened to be a very nice cover with a nice marking slip on that. This is an article. This is a first day cover, excuse me, not a first day cover, but a first flight cover that was going to Germany that was sent back on the SS Liberty, which happens to be a former German ship that was taken over by the French after World War II and ran into some problems on its journey coming on back. This was the first flight cover from Boston to Cologne. This is what's underneath there. And here's the basic story about the liner itself. The French line's SS Liberty was a North German Lloyd Lines SS Europa ship built in the 20s. It was taken over by the French fleet as reparation for World War II, as you can see there. And there's just a little bit of a story there. This particular crossing was the second crossing that the ship had made after it had been rebuilt by the French and came over to the US. On its second trip here to New York is when all of this mess happened. And for whatever reason, the mail which was there got water damaged. Doing a little bit more research, I found another cover like it in an auction catalog, which gave a little bit more information. That said her cargo included 500 philatelic first flight covers, which were all storm damaged en route and have a similar attachment on each of those. So that was kind of interesting finding all of that information on out. Another interesting marking here, delivery of mail is delayed due to improper address. Advise correspondence of your hall and room number. And as you can read through here, this was sent to the Harvard Business School. Interestingly, to Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is exactly where it is, but somebody crossed that out and wrote the word Boston instead. I mean, it's just kind of like a far-flung suburb, I guess.
Wait a sec. As a Bostonian, I have to protest.
Oh, go ahead.
Harvard Business School is located in Boston. Harvard University is located in Cambridge.
Is it really? Oh,
Yes.
I'm glad you got the information on that.
And
Okay.
Boston's, I would say, the more significant city is the state capital, but the Charles River runs between the two of them. So they effectively are twin cities, but the identities are very distinct. And the
Wow.
medical school is also in Boston.
Oh, interesting. Very, very interesting. But I thought this was kind of interesting just to have that particular marking that must have been, again, a private marking, not a USPS marking, I wouldn't think, probably of just the dormitory halls and correspondence with the students which are there. Boy, here's a stumper. I have never run across this particular marking before. First day of issue postponed indefinitely. In fact, this is one that I sent along to John Hotchner just for him to take a look at. He has apparently known of these before and wanted a copy of the cover just to do a write-up on it in some column, whether it be Lynn's or something else there. But I said, well, there's an interesting story with this one. This was a cover mailed from a collector in Wisconsin to receive some first day cancels on an envelope that was scheduled to be released on June 14th for the Mayflower envelope. And I'm going to flip it onto the next page so you can kind of see all that, because the really nice thing is that this contained all kinds of information inside about what this guy wanted, and even a copy of the Lynn's article where it was announced that in the May 26th issue of Lynn's, the announcement was made that this U.S. embossed envelope featuring the Mayflower would indeed be issued just shortly thereafter on June 17th in Plymouth, Massachusetts. So this collector had actually two little notes inside, must have included some money, as you'll see here in the note as well too, to try to get some nice first day covers from the issue. But for some reason, the production of that particular envelope delayed its release. It was not released then on June 17th as originally announced, but it actually got released, as you see here in the lower right-hand corner, in December 4th. There was some production delays or problems with the envelope that caused the first day not to be held in June, but in December. So all of the requests from collectors around the country who wanted that first day apparently got mail sent back with that nice auxiliary marking on it. This is actually a front. It's maybe about a foot by foot square that was folded in half and just has an interesting marking on here. No rate indicated, sealed against inspection, subject to first class rate. This was a cover that, as you can see here, from Van Nuys, California, mailed on October 28th of 1980 something or other. Can't quite make out the full date here. Very, very, very light cancellation through that. But I was able to figure out, at least by the rate, approximately when that was going. This must have been a cover that someone thought would go at a lower rate other than first class, for whatever reason, stuck some stamps on there. And it was then opened up and inspected and said, no, it doesn't go at whatever that rate was originally. It's actually a first class piece of mail. So there's $1.23 postage due on it. With that $1.23 postage I was able to do, I was able to kind of backtrack and figure out, okay, let's look at what's actually on there. Is $1.35 paid with $1.23 due. And from all of that, you do the math, put it all together, $2.58. If that was sent first class, that would have been a 15-ounce rate that took place between 1981 and 1985, as you see there, with 20 cents being the first ounce and 14 additional ounces on top of that at 17 cents an ounce. That worked out exactly to the right rate of $2.58. And kind of interesting. You do a little math to try to figure all that out too.
That sounds very convincing. The thing I'm trying to figure out is this thing actually a flat envelope? I mean, is it skinny?
Yes, this is a front, and it's only a piece of what must have been a much larger envelope that goes beyond that. I have it here on the desk, but no need to send it out because that's exactly how it looks like. It's folded in half, and it was cut down from whatever size envelope it originally was, which I would have thought would have also bore, what rate or what classification of mail that should have been sent or mailed out at, unless he just stuck stamps on there and put it in the mailbox and somebody caught it.
Well, I wonder if I don't know the U.S. rates, but I wonder if it was a printed matter.
Could have been. Don't know.
Because what I'm thinking is, if this thing's an envelope, getting a pound in an envelope is, that's a kind of a well-loaded envelope. And what I'm wondering is, it's obviously larger than a letter. Letters are a maximum of 6 1/8 inch tall and 11.5 long. So this thing's not a letter, it's a flat.
Could have been a book.
Well, I'm thinking with a flat, the rates go up much higher because, for example, the Auxiliary Markings newsletter, if you fold it in thirds in a letter envelope, it's a forever stamp. It's 68 cents. But if you put it in a flat envelope, it's $1.20 last time I looked. So the rate's nearly double when you go up to a flat. So, I mean, you did some really nice math here, but what I'm wondering is, if you look up instead the rates for flat mail instead of letter mail, they're probably double. And maybe what the person did was they paid first class thinking it was a letter rate. Not a lot of people know their flats rates.
Right.
So if you put it on a scale and it weighed, however many ounces, they put on the right number, assuming that it was a letter at that postage rate. But if you now have to nearly double it for a flat, and it could have been a lot lighter.
Interesting. Well, that needs some more research then, for sure.
Yeah, let's see, $1.30. So that's 7. It's maybe 6 ounces at the letter rate would be $1.35.
Wow.
So that might have been what happened. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have Tony's rate book to help me out with that. I wished I did, but that might answer a few more questions about this particular piece. But thanks for the insight for that. That could explain it. All right, here's another one. Has anyone ever seen an overcarried to Shanghai, China mark like this? This is one that I also sent on to John to get his insights on. He has never run across this before and suggested that I send this in to be put in our next newsletter. And I did so here. This is a House of Farman first day cachet for the Everglades National Park, 1947 issue. Really nice alligator there in the cachet. And the stamp design is quite nice too, of course, depicting the Everglades in Florida and in wildlife there as well too. Postmarked on December 5th, the first day in Florida City. Everything looks great there. But that overcarried to Shanghai, China mark was quite interesting. So the only thing I can think of is that it perhaps was put in the wrong mail bag that got bound to China. Or well, I don't know. Anybody else have any possible?
Well, there's something here in the middle too, that looks,
Yeah,
I can't tell.
I
Is there
can't
some-
quite make out it looks like part of a straight line,
Yeah,
but it doesn't look like there's any lettering above or just below that line.
yeah.
The overcarry tool looks like a separate and a different stamp than Shanghai, China.
Well, they
Shanghai,
are
China,
different. They are different
almost-
fonts.
Yeah, the one below almost looks like the one you put together from a kit, and you know get the town and a country, because I can't see them having ready-made stamps for Shanghai, China, unless it was a common thing.
I have no idea. The ink is the same, I think. The color of the ink looks right, but that's kind of standard post office color ink.
Yeah, and it's a rubber stamp, so they use the same pad.
Yeah.
It's also the same, the two of them are quite parallel to each other at an
Mhm.
arbitrary angle, which suggests there's a decent chance anyhow that they were connected and not two independent stamps.
Well, it
But-
would kind of make sense maybe if that Shanghai, China was the interchangeable part of that marking, and you could put a different city and country or something in there. I don't know.
I wonder where that was applied. In Honolulu?
I would guess that would be Honolulu, because that's where it ended up.
If it would have been applied in China, you would think it would be in Chinese.
Right.
So I'm guessing that at the bottom it says Honolulu TH for territory of Hawaii because it's
Yeah.
13 years before it became a state.
Correct.
And they overcarried. I mean, as a layman, my sense is overcarried means that it overshot the target.
That's what I thought.
It seems an awfully casual term to use for, but I can easily imagine things since Hawaii's a way station on the way to China in those days, that since they didn't do such long distance flights, I could imagine it might be a regular problem that a mail sack continues on the path to China instead of staying in Hawaii where it belonged.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they did have enough of a problem to make up that stamp.
Well, very interesting, very unusual. I'm sure this would be a key piece for anybody who collects that particular issue. That's that turned out to be a heck of a cover. All right, let's go on to this one. A little bit more modern. I'm guessing this cover was posted around 1980 because that's the year the stamp itself from Poland was issued. There's no other postal markings on there as far as where in Poland it was mailed from, but it was mailed to our friends at Coca-Cola Company at that particular P.O. drawer, i.e. box number 4734, Atlanta, Georgia, and has those other markings that you see at the top there. This was sent by airmail. That's that Lotnitska purple markings that you see 2 times on the cover. It was mailed, as I mentioned, I can only guess around 1980. So I said, well, what's the story maybe with those other markings that are up in the upper left-hand corner from Coca-Cola? So I did some more digging in that regards too. And this cover was originally mailed to, again, the postal drawer 4734. It wound up at P.O. Box 4268, which I found is the official address of the officers of the Coca-Cola Company. You'll see that right down here. This is the incorporation division, the was it Department of State for Georgia, that keeps the records of where all these companies are headquartered and all the rest. So at least I was able to figure out that 4268. But that wasn't the end, because the other mark, and I'll get to the next page here. Again, that's the 4268, which is in the upper left of the cover. Also had this marking, said, please forward to Coca-Cola Company, P.O. Box 1734 in Atlanta, Georgia. And lo and behold, if you go to the Coca-Cola website, that is the main address and post office box that to this very day is in Atlanta, Georgia, for the people at Coca-Cola. So again, I don't believe these were postal markings from our post office, but private markings from the Coca-Cola Company. They must have had mail go to some of these various post office boxes and then wanted them forwarded to the right P.O. box. Hence the please forward auxiliary marking that you'll see here that actually bears the word Coca-Cola Company on it. Just something kind of interesting and a little unusual. And this is an easy one. I think almost all philatelists who know their worldwide geography would at least have heard of Tuvalu, the capital of Funafuti, and in Central Pacific, all clues that we would know of offhand, but obviously the people at the post office didn't, because they included a note here. Return for better address must include city. It does. Province, well, there's no province involved, but there is a country, of course, and the country is not abbreviated. It is there. Handwriting may be a little difficult to read, but again, if they did a little bit of digging, they would have been able to figure out where this one actually happens to go to. Was sent by an APS member. There's a nice sticker on there, and sent by airmail, using all Christmas stamps as well, too.
Cool.
And nice cover for anybody that collects Christmas. So that's the extent of what I had.
Thank you.
Couple interesting things.
Great, Tom. Thanks a lot. Does anybody else have anything they want to show?
Just a quick comment on that last one.
Yep.
They even went to the trouble of saying Central Pacific.
Yeah.
So they actually went one step beyond what was asked. They did everything they were asked, and then they gave the continent effectively.
They just had to look at a map. What can you say? Again, that's the next pay grade for the postal employee. Obviously, the person above them would know that kind of thing, and the Nixie clerk or whoever handled that didn't quite know their geography as well as they could have or should have.
That's great. All right. Well, if no one has anything else, I guess we'll call it a night there. And we thank everybody for coming. And if you're watching this on Zoom and you're not a member of our august and very fun club, the Auxiliary Markings Club, we invite you to become a member. And certainly you can join in without being a member in these Zoom meetings, but there are lots of other benefits. So everybody have a great night, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.